Hi everyone, this is Bill and I'm back with another episode of Hiking 101. It's a beautiful day here in Central Texas. The rains have stopped, the sun is out, the temperatures are going up, and I'm inside because 2 houses over, a couple of guys are making some serious noise with chainsaws. From an early age, we're inundated with advertising phrases and slogans and jingles. We know that good to the last drop refers to Maxwell House. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a relief it is, tells us all about Alka-Seltzer. I bet most of us could even sing the Oscar Mayer jingle. But today we're going to refer to one that says, where the rubber meets the road. The phrase where the rubber meets the road is most often associated with the Firestone Tire and Rubber Company. They began to use it in the TV ads back in the mid-60s. I think it would also be a great slogan for a hiking shoe manufacturer, because that is the first thing we really need to look at. One of the synonymous slogans with where the rubber meets the road is one that says the moment of truth, or another one says this is where the work starts. And so as we look at hiking and the equipment that we need, the very first thing that we should consider, in my opinion, are the shoes that we wear. And so today we're going to talk about how to find footwear, what we should look for in footwear, and perhaps this will help you out. Now, I work on the premise that Google is our friend. So the first thing I start with any research is I Google a question. I'll Google what are the best hiking boots? What are the best hiking shoes? And once I've done that, then I begin to look at the reviews and the comparisons on places like Outdoor Gear Lab, Clever Hiker, Section Hiker. There are a number of them that will give you this kind of thing. And then once I've read the various reviews, then I go back and look at the common shoes that they've reviewed, because the list can be quite different. And then once I've looked at those shoes, then I begin to look at reviews of those shoes at other sources to find out what other hikers and other backpackers like in their shoes. So once I've done that, then I decide I'm going to go try a shoe on. I don't like to buy shoes online because I want to be able to try the shoe on and compare it with another brand or two. So as a result, I just don't buy shoes online very often. I don't want to go through the hassle of having one shipped to me, find out that it doesn't fit, and have to ship it back. Now, you would think that as you get older, we would know the size shoe that we wear, but you might be wrong. I'm convinced that most of us wear shoes that are just incorrectly sized. We tend to, when we become adults, we tend to continue to buy the same size shoe for a period of years, and not taking into consideration that as we've gotten older, as we've gained a little bit more weight, our foot has changed slightly, and as a result, so have the shoe needs changed. So the first thing I would do is go into a sporting goods store or a store that sold various hiking boots. I would have them measure my feet, not just a foot, but I'd measure both of them, because believe it or not, we're not very symmetrical. Plus, there are things about us that might cause our feet to be a little asymmetrical because of things over the years. For instance, I developed an injury playing racquetball about 10 years ago, and so my right foot now swells up faster than my left foot. So I make sure that I try the shoe on and measure my right foot to allow for the swelling that takes place there. So once I've found the size shoe that they suggest, go a half size up at least, and sometimes up a full size, because you want to have a shoe that's large enough to allow your foot to swell as you hike, because that's just what happens. And you know, if you only hike 1 or 2 miles a day, it might not be as bad. But if you want to do a longer hike, if you want to do a 10 or a 15 mile hike, then you want to have that shoe be able to not constrict your foot. So look at a larger size shoe. Then, before you try the shoe on, make sure you have the correct socks. I'm a long time cotton sock wearer, and I had to face facts that cotton is not the best choice for hikers. A cotton sock loses its loft as it's washed over the years, and so it's just not as comfortable after you've had it a while. Plus, a cotton sock will absorb the sweat on your foot, and it will hold that sweat next to your foot, and so as your foot gets hotter, it continues to get hotter, and it doesn't wick that moisture away. Instead, I would suggest looking at a wool sock or a wool synthetic blend. Now, there are synthetic socks out there as well that you might try, but I prefer a wool synthetic blend. There are a lot of different manufacturers. I've got socks from the late lamented Gander Mountain. I've got Wigwam. I've got Academy's brand. I've got Smart Wool, but my favorite is Darn Tough. Darn Tough comes in different sizes, thicknesses. It comes in different colors, different heights on the sock. You can get a micro crew or a boot height sock, and in various thicknesses. So they've got you covered. In fact, the Darn Tough has become my daily wear sock year round. Plus, they have a lifetime guarantee. You watch some of the videos of hikers like Darwin and Dixie, and they wear through these socks while they're doing the Pacific Crest Trail. So they're able to exchange them, get new socks, and they're good to go. In my opinion, they hold up. They keep their loft. They're cushioned better through a series of washings than cotton does. The other thing you need to consider is to come in and get your shoe later in the day once you've been on your feet for a while during the day, because as I said earlier, as we walk, our feet begin to swell slightly, and so you want your foot to be as close as possible to what it's going to be like when you hike. So going later in the day, have them measure your feet, have the sock you're going to be wearing with that shoe, and then try on the various shoes. Now, one of the things that we do know as we get older, we begin to realize that our foot has changed, and that perhaps it's wider in the toe box than it used to be. So we have to look for shoes that because shoes are different in the way they're constructed. For instance, Vosk shoes tend to be very narrow, and I avoided a catastrophe several years ago when I did a pre-hike with a friend of mine wearing a pair of Vosk boots that I had intended to wear to the Grand Canyon. But about 2 miles into this hike, I began to experience some pain in my right foot, and sure enough, by the time we got back from that 7-mile hike, I was really hurting. So I knew at that point that I needed to make a change. So I began to do the research that I just told you about. I looked online, and then I went to the local store, which at the time was Gander Mountain, and I began to compare different shoes and try them on. Now, one of the things that you need to think about on shoes is, does it fit right out of the box? That's my preference. I know you can add an inner liner or an orthotic to give you better support, but if the shoe does not fit from the very beginning, you're just kind of doing a Band-Aid approach. So put the shoe on, walk around, see if you have any hot spots, any places where it's rubbing, because if you do, then it will get worse than when you're hiking. So I came away that first year realizing that Keen is probably the boot for me. So I found this pair of Keens. They're called the Tarjee 3, the Tarjee 2, and these are not the ones. So I found a pair of Keens. These are called the Tarjee 2. They've since been superseded by the Tarjee 3. Now these boots are a mid-rise. I like a mid-rise shoe because it's more stable on my foot. This is a waterproof shoe, which is a great thing. But this is a waterproof shoe, which sometimes is not a good thing, because in summer months, a waterproof shoe is very, very hot. So, but that was my first shoe. In preparing for backpack trips, I've made 2 trips to the Grand Canyon with that shoe, and 1 trip to Bryce Canyon, and it worked real well for me. But as I began to hike in the summer months here in Central Texas, I knew that I needed to I needed some other shoes because those boots were just too hot. So I began to do some research again and some reading, and I was intrigued, and I read about this shoe called an Ultra. This is an Ultra Top Peak. This is what a lot of the younger thru hikers are wearing. The neat thing about this shoe is that it is what's called a zero drop. It is the same distance from your heel from the ground as it is on the ball of your foot. Imagine walking barefooted. Most shoes will have up to a 5-degree lift in the back, but the Ultra doesn't. It's a very cushiony sole because this is a trail runner, but a lot of folks like it. It took me a while to get used to the zero drop, and as a result, I've never taken it on any real big hikes, just local hikes. I wear it a lot walking my dogs, but because it is such a soft sole, it also wears out very quickly, as you can see there. But I like the shoe. I just have not had the opportunity to wear it on a long through hike. I prefer something a little more substantial. Now I also tried a pair of Salomon XD3A Pros, which were also trail runners. I had the same issue with them. It's a nice soft sole, but the soles wear out very, very quickly, and I would wear them while I was walking dogs, and so the sidewalks were very abrasive, would wear those shoes away quickly. So I continued to search for a good summer weight hiking shoe, and I came across a shoe called Oboz, O-B-O-Z. Now these are called the Oboz Sawtooth. It's a low top. It's not a waterproof shoe. It's a wider toe box, not as wide as the Keen, but I like them pretty well. Now it's a little stiffer sole than the Keen, so if you hike more than about 3 or 4 hours, your foot becomes a little more fatigued because it's not getting the cushioning that it would be with something else. Now I said that I don't buy shoes that online, but shortly after buying those, and I like them, I came across a closeout on another Oboz brand called a model called a Scapegoat. Now this shoe is no longer made, and but REI had them on sale, and I thought, well, I can always use more shoes. Now this shoe is a little narrower, both in the toe box and in the heel. Again, it's a harder sole, but one thing that these shoes do have, they've got a great inner sole. So that fits real well, but just not as comfortable still as my Keens were. Well, in my continued efforts to find the perfect hiking shoe, I made some more purchases. The next one I went back to REI, and I bought this shoe. This is a Keen Targhee Vent. Now this is very similar to my Targhee 2s, but it is not waterproof, and as a result, it's much, much cooler in the summer months. I wore this shoe on my last trip to the Grand Canyon in October, and just a great shoe. Did not think about my feet at all, which is a good thing. Still wanting a low top shoe, I went back and I got the same model, but this time in a low cut. This is the Targhee Vent Low, and I wear this shoe quite a bit on just short hikes in our neighborhood parks. I like it real well. I don't wear these on long hikes because as I've got narrow heels, and as I hike, my heel will slide up and down, and I begin to wear holes in the back of the padding of the shoe. The mid-top shoes hold the shoe more in place, and it does allow my heel to slide up and down. But these are great shoes as well. Now, there actually are considered to be 3 kinds of hiking shoes. These are considered backpacking shoes. All the ones we've looked at so far, with the exception of the Ultras, which are trail runners. But there's also a shoe called a mountaineering shoe. Now those are the old high top leather boots that take a lot of breaking in. I don't have any of those. I do know from reading that they require a long period of breaking in before they're comfortable, so I'm not willing to do that. The other thing they talk about are light hikers, and I've got a couple of pair. These are actually by Skechers. These are water resistant, basically just a casual shoe that I wear a lot. In fact, I've got 2 pair of them, different colors, and they work fine for hiking for a couple of hours, but but they've got a harder sole with less padding and cushioning, and so they get a little, your feet get a little tired after a long period of time. Now the truth is, if I were hiking only at Lick Creek Park, these shoes would work fine. But I do hike harder trails. I want something with a little more traction for those technical areas. So the thing that I say is, all of our feet are different. Because I like the Kings does not necessarily mean that the King shoe fits you. So find a shoe that fits. If you've got a wide foot, you might like a King or an Oboz. If you've got a narrow foot, you might like the Voss shoe. There are dozens of manufacturers out there, so try them out. And that's why I say go into the store, find a sporting goods store, a Cabela's or a Bass Pro or an REI or any of dozens others. Try the shoes on, compare them back to back, and you'll be well ahead of the game. Anyway, so that's what I have. And as my friend Cameron LaBar says, I'm supposed to say to you, if you have any comments or questions, please do those below. Follow my channel. Subscribe to The Well-Worn Hiker. My name is Bill, and I am The Well-Worn Hiker.